right, welcome back to another episode of Garner Station. I am Joe Stallings, the Director of Economic Development here for the town of Garner, and with me today we have Nikki Leonard, the Department Head of Education from Wake Tech, and Cassandra Brooks, the owner-operator of Little Believers Academy. And today's episode is going to focus on the importance of early childhood education to economic development. So welcome, Nikki and Cassandra. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Out of the gate, let's define what is early childhood education.
So early childhood education is really looking at the development of children between 0 to 8 really is technically what it is. However, in our programs, we typically tend to focus on 5 and under. And really what we're looking at is the different domains of development. So cognition, social emotional development, physical, gross motor, fine motor skills, communication, language, and really helping these children to develop and understand and provide developmentally appropriate practices for them to grow and learn, hopefully at their own pace, ideally. And, you know, the programs that we have in North Carolina do differ, I think, from center to center. But when you are looking for that kind of program, you really want to take into consideration what is important to you and see what the programs have to offer.
Absolutely. And Cassandra, why is early childhood education so important?
Wow, early childhood is so important because it sets the foundation for learning. For example, I don't know if you've heard when children get to 5th grade or the 3rd grade reading levels and they are not able to read, and everybody's trying to pull back and see what happened. Well, most of the times that happens because the child didn't have a good foundation, meaning they didn't have a basis and a program to attend when they were 0 to 5. Learning doesn't start at 8 years old or 5 years old. Learning starts at birth, and actually some studies even show that it starts in the womb when the mom is still engaging and talking to her baby and reading to her baby at an early age. So early childhood is everything. It's so important. And as a business owner, on the flip side, I want to ensure that children have access to early education because I need employees as well. Every industry right now has a shortage of employees. And when we put in and put the emphasis on early childhood early, and when I say early, at 0 years old, offering that exceptional childcare space and place and learning opportunity for the child, it just helps them evolve as they matriculate through school, and then they're able to hopefully one day become a quality citizen and worker that we need. And depending on, every child is different and their likes and then they'll be able to join the job that fits what they're looking for.
The studies have shown too that the first 2,000 days, the first 5 years of a child's life is the most important in determining who that child is going to be as an adult, more than any other time period of their life, that first 5 years. And so it's really important for us to get in there and set those practices in place, work with the families, work with the children, and really get them to be competent citizens, like you said. It's creating that community of learners, right, and hopefully instilling that love of learning if you're doing it right.
That's right.
Well, I know whenever I was doing the research for this topic, one of the things that's kind of got my attention is right now, like you said, Cassandra, everybody's looking for talent. Everybody needs that new staffer.
Yes.
But we created those those employees 20 years ago, or longer than that.
Right.
And the early childhood education programming in this country and here in North Carolina and Wake County has changed so much since, 2000 or 1980, certainly.
Right.
How has things changed over time in early childhood education, whether it be from an educational perspective, you teach the programming, or even the actual practical implementation of education? How has it changed since the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s?
I think there's more of a recognition of that children do learn through play, and that play and those experiences and those opportunities will help the children to develop the other skills that they need. So things like letters and numbers and counting and all of that stuff doesn't need to be the focus. You don't need to have the letter of the week or the sight words at that like early age. You want to have a print-rich environment. You want to have a classroom that elicits children wanting to play in different areas and working and building on different skills. So, going on their interest as well. I think we've seen that trend starting to happen more because, again, when children are interested in a topic, they're going to pay attention to it. And so taking cues from them, I remember I had one teacher, she was a former student of mine, and she had gone on to get her bachelor's degree. And she did a study on the kids really wanted to learn about dinosaurs, which is hard to do in a real sense and really bring it into the classroom. However, she had that study going for 5 months with 3-year-olds, and they just kept building on it and talking about the different, where you could find dinosaurs now, like, where you would see them. And then what are the roles in the museum? Who works in the museum? And it just kept evolving. And she had a timeline bulletin board that showed the children working on different things and how these ideas were developing.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
And on the implementation side, Cassandra, I mean, things have had to change in the classroom, right?
Yes. Since I've been working in early childhood, one of the main things I've seen is North Carolina has really pushed the need for education. And many studies have shown that teachers with education behind them, they're able to do better in the classroom. The children, the outcomes are better in the classroom. So I have seen that there has been a bigger push for more teachers to have associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, BK license. Some of the teachers that I have a license, just like the teachers that work at public school. I've had teachers with master's degrees like myself. So there has been a big push for education. Also, the state has supported education in the form of Teach. We offer Teach scholarships to individuals who enter the early childhood workforce who want to go back to school and go to Wake Tech or JCC or some of the other community colleges in the area. So there has been a big push, I believe, for education. And I think that's great because I just told my staff, I just left the training and I said, once you have it behind, you have your name on that degree, it's yours forever. That never goes away. You can leave this job and go to the next one, but you always have that degree and you'll be able to produce a better outcome for the next child. And so that is so important. One other thing I just wish from an economic standpoint, we could continue to push is for higher wages for the early childhood teachers, because we do want them to go to school and produce quality children, quality talent for the workforce. But they also need to be able to be paid a quality living wage.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that you touched on that in terms of that, the education piece. So in North Carolina, you only need to pass EDU 119 to get your credential to be qualified to be a lead teacher in a classroom. Let me just tell you, Intro to Early Childhood Education is the class. And that is not enough to really, truly be an effective leader. Right. So, we have certificate programs, we have degrees, and all of them work into each other. So hopefully once they get that certificate, I can keep going. I can move on. But we have seen, and you've been a really big part of working with the legislature on the raise of these wages.
Yes.
And I think it's really come to light since the pandemic that childcare, and it's not daycare, it's childcare, because we are taking care of children, not days.
Right.
And the need for these people, these are essential workers. Absolutely. We were not able to get through that pandemic without them. And they, unfortunately now, because they're not getting paid what they really should be, they deserve.
Sure.
Right.
People are going into other jobs. They can make more working at Target.
Yes.
My neighbor makes $15 an hour working at Target.
Right.
Why am I going to go and bust my butt, and take care of other people's kids when really we're not paying them enough to take care of their own?
That's right.
Insurance, all of that for these teachers.
All of that. That's right.
Unfortunately right now, I think the pandemic has created more of an aware, accepting like, oh, this is really necessary. But it's also causing a huge shortage. I mean, I've seen entire centers shut down. And 80%, I think, of Wake County right now is not, they don't have, the areas that they're in do not have enough childcare options.
I agree.
I pulled an article from UC Berkeley that said in the first 6 months of the pandemic, we lost 20% of all child care workers. And the real kind of aha moment in that is the greatest percentage of child care workers are female. And not only are they female, they're minority. And so we're seeing this real equity issue.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, if you take out the actual importance of child care development and you just look at it from an equitable standpoint, it is a huge issue.
Right.
And so I don't know if the silver bullet to that, right? But I think the more we can bring people's attention to this issue,
Right.
the better chance we have at making an impactful change.
That's right.
So if we can, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, maybe we know where we are today, right? We've got huge gaps in our employment. These folks are doing incredible work every single day. I've got a young child. I can tell you what those folks do at his child care center is amazing because I couldn't do it.
Right.
But what is the future of that? You know, how do you go from losing 20% of the workforce
and more
for
6 months every day?
More
and
more
you're not
each
paying
day.
the prevailing wage, so you're not going to be competitive on the money side.
Right.
So how do you get people in the door to perform the work?
Right. And you brought up a really great point, because I was just left a staff training and, you know, letting them know some of the changes that are coming about, you know, optional mask and, you know, these type of things. We don't have to pull children out of the classroom if we have to pull them out if they're positive, but we don't have to close the whole school, you know, all of these things. So parents can go back to work. And when I said that, I still saw on some of the faces still the nervousness of being in the classroom with potentially even more positive children and risking their health. So it is really, and being that I've had teachers during this whole pandemic that, you know, they have contracted the virus and hold their whole families and all those things. And so it's just really, you know, going to take a lot to try to pull in. And it's not also always exactly the money, but it's a combination, like Nikki said, it's the benefits, all of these things. We want these teachers to come and work with young children and, you know, produce quality outcomes, yet they don't even have health insurance for the viruses that they contract in the classroom. They contract the viruses in the classroom. They contract pink eye. I've seen it. The teacher has the pink eye. The children start off with pink eye. Now the teacher has pink eye. Now the teacher has lice. Lord, she doesn't even make enough money to go get the lice treatment. You know, all of those things. And as a business owner, you want to try to help your staff as much as possible, but it's only so much that your pocketbook, if you will, your account can allow. And so really, I think this is going to take all efforts. I do commend the federal government for trying to pull in the 3 and 4 year old, if you will, the program that will allow them all children to have access to the universal child care that would allow all children 3 and 4 years old to have access to child care. I think that's great, but it's also going to take in, we're going to have to give these teachers benefits, increased salaries, to pull some of these people back, the quality talent that we lost to the Targets and the other ones that are trying to come up and pay the $20 an hour and all of those things. We're gonna have to pull that talent back. And the only way to do that is essentially through a restructuring of, okay, you have access to provide, you have the educational background to provide quality care to 3 and 4 year olds. Well, then you at this point have access to health care. You at this point have access to this quality wage and vice versa. It's going to have to be a restructuring because many a times we have child care has been looked upon as a lower of the one of the public school teacher. Yet many of them still have the same quality education. They have the same quality skill sets as a public school teacher, yet they want to work with a younger child. And so I think it's going to take a whole restructuring. And even though I appreciate the universal child care, like the studies have shown, it starts at an early age. I think as we continue, even as a state government, if we can continue to provide care for even the younger child, I think that we'll see even better outcomes.
And it's just, I mean, it's very hard. I think when you look back to, and you were talking about the 80s before, or if you look back even prior to that, the people that were going into childcare were mothers that were now having an empty nest, and they were relying on the skills that they had as a parent, you know. And then we have really taken notice and transitioned more into, I think, what we see today. But I do. I think that recruitment right now is where I'm focused at Wake on getting more students in that do want this and reaching out to different programs. NC Works, I think it's their next program. I've been talking with them. We're going to go out and we are presenting, and I'm bringing one of my students out with me who is a role model. She is a Black female. She is older. She has worked her way through the program when she could, and she is graduating. And so, this is a success story, and this is somebody that younger minority females mostly that are in these lower socioeconomic groups that have gotten their GEDs that are capable of doing this. So let's foster that. And they are actually paying for these people to get their certificates.
That's right.
So the certificates are 5 or 6 classes depending on which one you go with. And it gives you a greater foundation, not as much as the degree, but better than just the 119.
Sure. Absolutely. I think education, on both sides of it is going to be the critical factor in it. How do we prepare not only the child, but also the child care worker to ensure that the children are getting the best education they can? And I guess the other thing from, during the pandemic is I think it showed a lot of us how important child care was.
Yes.
And I think it always was that way, right? I went to grandma's house. I didn't go to the daycare center. But whenever people found themselves having to work from home, they also had to figure out how are they going to provide child care. And all of a sudden, it brought to light how important this really is. We talked a little bit about what the future is and how things are going, but has there been anything that has been specifically successful in early child care education that maybe is a role model or a model from around the nation that's really made an impactful change?
I will say, from more of a personal experience anyway, my husband works for Head Start in Wake County. He is he just got promoted, so I don't know what his new title is, but he's a family service specialist, and he's supervising other family service specialists now. And he has been home probably about a year and a half of the last 2 years and working from home. And they were really trying to stay in touch with the families, even though the center was closed at different times. They would offer meal pickup. They would offer supply pickup days, and they would purchase these things for the families. So the families could come and get food, could get the supplies so that they could do some activities with the kids through the week. The teachers were logging on. It was not an ideal situation, and it was challenging, but they are coming back now. And I think any program that's been able to stay open.
Yes.
Like you said that before.
Yeah.
And that,
I think, I agree. Just some of the things I think have been successful, like you said, just being able to stay open. Many businesses still, they closed during the pandemic. Not only childcare industry, but many industries, they closed. And so still being able to be successful and stay open and provide quality care and have, access to a workforce is so important, right now. And so I think, I was just telling my staff how thankful I am and thankful for each and every one of them that even during this, we were still able to break through and go against the grain and stay open when many centers closed. I think it was called this, not sure the exact name, but it was where you had the choice to stay open during the period when, when the state was closed down. And so we stayed open to provide care for essential workers. And so we continued to just push through even during the Moricon virus, just different things. We still continue to push through and provide care for the families as much as possible. And so I think that is one success. Also, we have the success of we have the North Carolina pre-K program at both of our centers, and just being able to provide that quality care for their children has been beneficial to them. Some of the families I've seen have started to go back to work now and all of those things. So I think that is, that's great. The children have somewhere to attend while the mom, so the mom can work at that point as well. And also just, similar to Head Start at my school, we provide help to families, when they were on quarantine, reaching out to them, seeing if they need help. We send Instacart. We've done things that,
let them know.
Yeah, let them know, like, you're our family too. We want to help you. We're all in this together. We're all in this together.
I think the biggest thing though too, and this is maybe not as successful, but the programs that have been able to stay open, you commented on quality, and there is a lack of quality in some centers, unfortunately, because of the shortage of workers. And so I had a neighbor of mine call me, and she has a 3-year-old he's a very bright, articulate little boy, very high energy, and just such a wonderful imagination. She said, well, I'm worried that he's going to get kicked out again, which, first of all, I do not like hearing any expulsions of children at that age.
Right.
But his behavior, he had started kind of acting up or getting frustrated at school. Come to find out, he has not had the same teacher in his classroom for 2 months. No, different teachers every day. And one of my other big concerns, I think, coming out of this is the social emotional skill development. How, when we're wearing masks, are we able to convey emotions to children?
Right.
I think about the toddler room that I used to go into.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to see expression. You need to be able to.
Right. I agree. I have seen a lot of changes in children due to the pandemic. I've seen more children in foster care, different things that have contributed to their social emotional health being off. And so it does make it very difficult in the classroom when, they're not really truly able at that young age to express the trauma that they have incurred because they have been.
It is trauma.
Yeah, it is trauma. Some of them have been abused and different things. And so they have now a foster family who's trying to care for them. And I never forget, it was just this past the end of December, and I had a young child. He was sweet as can be, 5 years old, in my NC pre-K program and in foster care. And I think this was like his second family. And his behavior due to the trauma was so, they weren't able to control it even through medication and through different help, that he was having to be shipped to a third family. And imagine how that impacts a young child.
Sure.
And as my center, we did all we could, to try to help the child. And then, but at that point, the foster family did not want that child, and they felt like they could not do anything else for them. They had to send them to another family. And so I still try to keep in touch with the CPS worker, I bought some little stuff for the little child, for the student and child. But it is, I agree, it is hard for the children, hard for the families, and it is difficult for the teachers as well. And it is hard for a child because I've had to pull out different teachers as well to meet COVID exposure. They can't become if they were exposed and then vaccinated. So many different rules that came along with that. If they became positive, of course, they can't, come to school. So then you have to pull in a substitute. So sometimes it does change out. And just like in any other industry right now, the reason businesses are having a hard time because they're having to pull out workers for positive or this and that, so it's hard to truly do business the way we used to.
Sure.
And so
We're going to go back to that.
Right. So, I had to learn, to tell myself not be troubled, be unbothered. You still got to keep pushing, do your best, because you can't control all of these things. You can't control if they become positive. You can't control things that happen outside of, you could just control this environment that you have here and try to put the best things in place.
Absolutely.
To provide that care. And so
I will say too, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I was just going to say that I do think, though, in terms of kind of shifting this back to the economic piece of it, I think that we are going to see long-lasting repercussions, I guess, or some difficulties in the future because of these years and the impact that it's had on all of the kids, regardless of early childhood or my teenagers, and, we've seen a huge rise in mental health and illness and really, and I think that is a positive, like it is putting a spin on it in terms of like, it's okay to get that help.
Yeah.
But we don't think about it with little ones that they are struggling just as much. And this gap, for those of them that have been experiencing that gap or not had the quality, I think we are going to see it in the years to come in
Yeah.
terms of schooling, in terms of jobs, in terms of work ethic.
Right.
Like all of that stuff
Yeah,
gets
I
impacted.
agree. Unless we can continue, and I appreciate this podcast, being able to put all hands on deck to try to help these issues. We know that it's going to potentially be an issue. So what can we do to try to rebound or, ensure that it's not such a big hurt to the economy and hurt to the talent. I do, when I think about it, it's just not the state and federal government trying to come in to help childcare. We need businesses to try to push in and help as well. We have a quality Amazon plant right around the corner here. I mean, they need lots of workers as well. I would love to see them come in and push into the early childhood. Some of the other larger businesses that we have in the area, I would love to see them come in and put some more, even their resources to help childcare. I mean, they have access to even more resources than we do, and just everybody pushing in, and that's how we're going to come out of this thing even better. Everybody, state government, the federal government, childcare owners and directors, teachers, small and local businesses, everybody coming together so we can push up a plan that's going to support the child that will in turn push out to help us have quality workers on the end. So.
And I think too, the programs that the childcare programs promoting the options, I have people that will call me and say, I have 10 workers that need to, and I can create a cohort. If I have enough people to make a class, I can create a cohort just for their workers to take a class or to take the certificate program.
Right.
And I think that on the education standpoint, we are, as a community college system, have had a lot of talks, and you're going to see a lot more of the fast track classes, the 8-week classes versus the 16-week, because when we do the 8-week, yes, you're doing twice the work in half the time, but they can go through and get those certificates in a quicker manner and therefore get higher pay and be better qualified. And so we saw a need for that. So that's, more of an intent when I'm creating schedules now.
Sure. Now, I think today's conversation really gets back to the old cliche, right? It takes a community. And certainly whether it's on, the practical side, on the education side, private business, a customer of daycare, childcare centers, it's going to take us all to get back. And I'll, just wrap up by saying a few things, is pulling statistics on it. We know that good, solid early childhood education has a significant impact on that child's life going forward. And here's just a few things, right? Children that are engaged in those programs are 46% less likely to be incarcerated. They're 33% to be less likely to be involved in violent crimes, and 26% less likely to be a recipient of government assistance. So we know that if you get them early and you set that foundation like you talked about, Cassandra, that it really launches them off into a great path forward. So I just want to thank you both for being here today. I know this is, something near and dear to my heart. I'm living it every day. And I hope through this podcast that the people that listen to it will understand just what's at stake. Because if we don't get it right, it may not hurt us today, but it will down the road.
Absolutely.
So thank you both for being here.
Thank you
and
for
thank
having
you
me.
for listening to another episode of Garner Station.